Today, let's talk about when to prime. At first, our review of today's video was mainly about European Asian firearms, but not the instant guns. Because not only in Japan, but in China, putting the priming powder usually is behind putting the main gunpowder into the barrel. I believe it was because the Matchlock was always used in the East, compared with the flint as the trigger to ignite the priming powder. It's possible that the spark drops from the smoldering slow match, and it may make the gun fire accidentally. So there almost wasn't a doubt. Although the ancient Eastern firearms operators could put the priming powder as the first step, most of them had not to do it, so they usually put the priming powder in the last step. So we will focus on the Western firearms in this video. After the hand cannon age in the muzzle-loading gun time of Europe, basically the age was divided by Matchlock and the Flintlock into two parts. When we see some Matchlock drilling from the 17th century, we can find that there were some differences from the ancient Matchlock loading steps, because it shows us that the priming was before charging the musket. However, when watching the videos on the internet, actually we can find that the priming step also can be on the last step. This is similar to the situation of Asian Matchlock in ancient times, but because the age of European Matchlock was far from nowadays, about 600 to 400 years ago. This week, I didn't find any articles that were good enough to explain the situation of European Matchlock loading steps. However, compared with the Matchlock, the material about the Flintlock is small. The articles, the historical manual exercise of Flintlock, even we can find a forum online where many people are discussing this muzzle loading topic. So today's video, we will focus on the Flintlock. When we talk about the usage of a Flintlock, there is an important point that we must notice. This is the safety. If we talk about the safety operation steps, doubtless putting priming powder at the last step. That is the safest way to operate a Flintlock gun. But even though the tumbler of a Flintlock has two teeth, we can say that the cork and the Flintlock can have two positions, half cork and full cork. When we put the priming powder, the hammer will be on the half cork position, and usually the trigger can be locked onto the position for many Flintlocks. But we need to be careful about the muzzle when loading a Flintlock, because at this moment the muzzle is facing our hands, even our head. Although the trigger can be in a locked situation, but the trigger is rarely away from our hand. That will mean it may be out of our control temporarily. It can make the gun operation a more precarious existence. If we prime the pan of a Flintlock first, it will be possible that the gun fires accidentally. I'm afraid that the result will be horrible. After all, this is a gun. On the contrary, if we didn't prime it at first, instead, we primed it behind charging the main gunpowder and the lead bow, the gun will be in a safer situation naturally, compared with priming the pan at first. However, when we see a manual exercise for infantry in 1802, it's like from this ancient manual, we could find something different. Actually, this manual exercise even reminded the official manual at West Point until about 1812. If the time comes back to the 18th century, the British Army also used this similar kind of infantry manual. So we can know that the Flintlock operation steps had not short history, not only Europe, but also America. It's like the military Flintlock using steps were different from what we just talked about, charging with cartridge first and then priming. So why did the military always use this kind of dangerous way to operate a Flintlock? Actually, this is also a question that was discussed by many people before. Just like in the muzzle loading forum, there was a topic when to prime after reading the people who discussed it. I think there was a pause, which made sense. So I think that can explain the different steps in the military and the regular flintlock users. Overall, it's about the different points that the regular users and the military officers focus on. Just like the military side, the military was interested in firepower, not safety. In addition, there is a situation that we have to notice. This is the paper cartridge. It is believed that this was the most popular way to carry and save gunpowder and bullets, before the metal cartridge was popular in the military area in the 1870s to 1880s. This paper cartridge stage might remain around 400 years to 500 years, from the late 14th and early 15th centuries to the 19th century, almost the whole black gunpowder time. For a soldier, a cartridge included two parts, a bullet and the gunpowder. The gunpowder would be put on the pen and into the barrel of this soldier's flintlock. As we know, the vibe of a battlefield is very tense. In the musket time, the gun's accuracy was obviously lower than the rifles, so generally, the military used the volley fire to improve the accuracy. But for a soldier standing on the battlefield, that's so horrible, because this man never knew which lead bolt could finish his life, even if there was a musket which was facing against a soldier hundreds of yards away. So most of the soldiers might be very nervous when standing in the array with a musket. According to the big book of gun trivia, of the 24,000 loaded muskets recovered after the Battle of Gettysburg, a quarter were properly loaded, half were double loaded, and the last quarter were multiple loaded. A further 11,000 were unloaded. So come back to the paper cartridge and the flintlock musket. In the battleground, if soldiers put the priming powder behind charging the main powder into the barrel, it would be possible that the soldiers could forget to save the priming powder, and it might mean that the gun couldn't fire. Thus, this might be the reason why the military always used the kind of dangerous loading steps. However, for us, loading the barrel first and then priming the pen is a better way to load the flintlock, but not the military way comparably, because safety is #1 priority. Okay, this is today's video. Hope you can like this video. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye.